My name is Chonthicha Menam. I am doing my informative speech on music in the classical period. Music in the classical period. Classical period lasted from approximately 1750 to 1820. Composers of classical period strive for more beautiful, simple, and well-balanced music. When most people mentioned classical music, they meant concert or art music, the music that was not popular or folk. With a lifespan about 70 years, classical period produced many wonderful and enjoyable music. Instrumental music developed and equaled or even exceeded vocal music. Many features were created differently from those of earlier eras. More music styles were urbanized, such as the symphony, solo concerto, and chamber music, along with its musical forms, while opera continued to grow. With Vienna, the capital of the Austrian Empire, being its artistic center, four leaders stood out, representing the spirit of the time, were Voltaire, John Jacques Rousseau, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson. Because of its interest of intellectual endeavors, classical period was sometimes referred to as the Age of Reason or the Age of Enlightenment. It admired the logic and rational thinking of the ancient Greeks. Many composers worked under a patronage arrangement in which they composed exclusively for one person, such as a count, duke, or a king. Classical music was light, airy, elegant, and well thought out. Composers thought more about creating beautiful and interesting works of music rather than pouring out their personal feelings. Their music tended to sound similar, but somewhat were different. Using themes of another composer was an accepted practice because the original composer considered its appropriation by another composer as a compliment. There are 7 features, which included melody, harmony, rhythm, dynamic levels, performance, and forms. Performance of orchestras did not reach the size of today's symphony orchestras. It used only pairs of woodwinds and brasses. No trombones or tubas were included, and the percussion section usually consisted of the timpani player. Several important forms of instrument music were developed, which was referred to as an absolute music. The most important form developed was a sonata form. The 3 sections of a sonata form consisted of exposition, development, and recapitulation. A coda usually concluded in movement. The exposition consisted of the first theme, a transition to a second theme, and a transition leading to a coda. In the development section, composers could work with fragments of either chords with the theme or any combination of these possibilities. The recapitulation returned the music of the exposition, usually with small changes as the music progressed. Its key did not change for the second theme. The composers related the movement only in terms of tempos and keys. They planned for contrast among the movement in terms of forms, melodic character, amount of development tempo, and so forth. In the solo concerto, the solo part was more showy and became more difficult than the orchestra part. But rondos usually had a bright, happy quality and were often the final movement of instrumental works. Over the years, dramatic quality had given way to display singing prodigies in operas, with flimsy plots and little dramatic impact. 2 distinct styles of opera were seria and buffa. Opera seria had a serious nature and was close to the original dramatic intent of the first operas, while buffa was a light style that was often a comic. The chief characteristic of chamber music was that it was played by small groups of instrumentalists, but with only one player on each part. Chamber music thrived in the classical period because social setting encouraged its creation and performance. Most performances were still for private audiences. Chamber music utilized the same forms as the other instrumental music of the time. A sonata was a chamber music work in 3 or 4 movements for solo piano or piano and another instrument. The most common keyboard instrument, the harpsichord, fell out of favor and was replaced by the piano. Because of the piano's increasing popularity, composers wrote music for it using the same forms that were in vogue for orchestral and chamber groups. Composers wrote many sizable works, including many sonatas. The instrument used in the piano sonata was either a keyboard alone, the piano, or with an addition instrument like the violin or cello. A symphony was a large work composed for an orchestra that was divided into movements, usually four. The 4 movements presented a contrast of tempo and mood. The first movement was in a sonata form and had a moderately fast tempo. The second movement tended to have a slow tempo and featured melody. The third movement was traditionally a minuet and trio. The fourth movement often used a rondo form and a lively tempo. Classical music has been known in the time of many great composers that are well known today. From Mozart to Schubert, music from the classical period has influenced many composers in their own music work as well as today's musicians. No matter which styles of classical music works are known and created, classical music sets out many different ways for musicians to exploit their talents. The influence of the music from the classical period will certainly stay known by many and will be discovered by future musicians. Thank you, thank you.